The afternoon sun poured into the courtyard of the private airstrip, scattering bright light across the polished floor and throwing long shadows behind a sleek, white jet gleaming inside the hangar. A cluster of executives in tailored suits and airline staff in crisp uniforms stood nearby, their footsteps clicking sharply against the concrete. The faint tang of jet fuel blended with the scent of polish in the air. Into this carefully arranged scene stepped a man who seemed out of place, like a stray brushstroke on an otherwise perfect canvas. He was lean, his skin weathered by decades of sun, his face lined but firm, his hands roughened with years of labor. His shirt was worn and stained, his trousers frayed, and his straw hat bent out of shape. A faded leather satchel hung loosely from his shoulder. As he moved forward, heads turned. Smirks spread across faces. Some whispered, laughing quietly at the sight of a man who looked as though he had wandered from a dusty farmyard into a world of billion-dollar jets and luxury shoes. Before this story unfolds further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in never judging a soul by its appearance, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support allows these tales of humanity to reach the world. The farmer's name was Raghav Sharma. His life had been marked not by ease, but by toil. For nearly 70 years, he had risen before sunrise, shaping the soil with his bare hands, braving searing summers and relentless rains. While others wore neatly pressed shirts and polished leather shoes, Raghav dressed in patched clothes, simple sandals, and the same straw hat he had kept for nearly 20 years. To strangers, he looked like nothing more than an aging farmer clinging to what little he had. But what no one could see was the truth he carried within. For decades, Raghav quietly purchased neglected lands, nurturing them until they bloomed again. His farmlands now stretched across valleys, plains, and hills, producing food that supplied not only his nation but foreign markets as well. His investments, chosen with care, multiplied steadily until his wealth exceeded that of many who now mocked him. Yet he never abandoned his way of life. He never sought golden watches or expensive suits. His joy was found in the whisper of crops swaying in the wind, in training young farmers, and in watching them flourish. As Raghav stood silently near the jet, one young executive leaned to his colleague and muttered just loud enough for him to hear. "What's he doing here? Must have lost his way from the fields." Their group chuckled. Raghav lowered his eyes, not out of shame, but with patience. He had heard such comments all his life. Years ago, when he approached banks for loans, clerks sneered at his torn clothes. When he sold produce in markets, traders mocked his appearance. To them, he was invisible, unless he carried money. But today, the irony was sharp. The jet they were preparing did not belong to the men in suits. It belonged to him. The laughter grew until a tall man in a navy blue suit approached confidently, his smile wide. His name was Aditya Malhotra, an ambitious manager who thrived on connections with the wealthy. With a mocking smirk, he jabbed a finger at Raghav's chest and said, "Old man, this is a private facility. You don't belong here." The staff nearby stifled laughter, entertained by the spectacle of a farmer out of place. Raghav's gaze lifted. His wrinkled face was calm, his eyes holding storms they could never imagine. He did not argue. He did not shout. His silence alone unsettled them. Then, from the far end of the hangar, the airport director entered with his assistants. His authoritative voice carried through the space as he spotted the gathering. "Mr. Sharma, your jet is ready. The pilots await your instructions. Would you like refreshments before your flight?" The room froze. The laughter died instantly. Color drained from Aditya's face as he realized the man he had insulted was not a beggar, but the owner of the jet. Shock rippled through the crowd, attendants gasped quietly, their amusement dissolving into awe. Raghav nodded politely to the director and walked past them without a word. He did not gloat, nor return their insults. He had lived too long to waste energy proving himself to those who measured worth in fabric and shine. Climbing the steps of the jet, his posture was steady, his head high. Inside, as the engines rumbled to life, he sat by the window, gazing at the runway. Memories rushed back nights when his wife stitched his torn clothes by lamplight. Days when his children walked barefoot to school because shoes were a luxury. And the time he nearly gave up after selling his first harvest for almost nothing. He remembered the ridicule from neighbors when he bought barren lands. The jeers from traders who dismissed him. He remembered the pain, but also the resilience that carried him through. As the aircraft rose above the clouds, Raghav closed his eyes and whispered a prayer. Not for riches, not for lands, not for power, but for the strength to remain the same humble farmer he had always been. His fortune had never changed his heart. He still walked the fields each morning, still fed the hungry, still funded schools and villages where children had little hope. That was his true wealth. The wealth of kindness, humility, and giving. The story of Raghav Sharma is not about riches held in banks or contracts signed in glass towers. It is about the wealth of spirit, the quiet dignity of a man who rose above mockery without bitterness, reminding the world that appearances deceive, but character reveals the truth. If this story touched you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Each act of support helps us share more inspiring tales of humanity.